I didn't see you there. My name is Mitchell. I'm a certified personal trainer. I study kinesiology, and I have a few tips for you for working on your shoulders so that you can prevent injuries, particularly chronic injuries like shoulder impingement, rotator cuff disorders, shoulder instability. Having those kind of injuries can hold you back from making gains. So if you have nice, healthy shoulders, you can continue to progress and get stronger without the nagging injuries that come along with strength training. Let's do this right so you can make some real gains and don't have any injuries to offset your progress. This series of shoulder mobility exercises can be done with a stick or any long rigid object. The idea here is to increase the range of motion of my shoulders, and I will do this on off days when I'm not training and sometimes as a dynamic warm-up before training. As you can see, if I go too narrow with the stick and try to go over, I can't bring my shoulders all the way back. So I take a nice loose grip with my finger, my index finger and my thumb, and it allows me to go all the way around. Those of you who have good shoulder mobility already should try this variation. You keep your arms behind you and you go one arm at a time. It demands a little bit more shoulder mobility than doing it two arms together, but it has additional benefits. I also do this with my arms remaining in front of me while bringing one arm behind me at a time, like you can see here. Bringing the stick behind you and pushing it so that it lengthens your arm, you can cause some downward rotation in your scapula, which can take some tension off the top of your shoulders. If you feel like your neck is really tight, this one might be for you. For this one, you'll grab the stick overhand or underhand, whichever works better for you, and try to pull it apart. You'll feel a stretch in your shoulder blades. At the same time, you want to push the stick forward to make sure your scapulas are flush and flat against your back. Once you learn how to keep your shoulder blades flat on your back without any scapular winging, you can now elevate and depress and work on that plane of motion. It's important to know how to elevate and depress your scapulas because when you're lifting, you want to be able to keep them down because that is where you'll have the most stability. Clasping my hands around the stick, driving the stick into the ground slightly, and trying to stretch my lats. It's really important to hinge at your hip down, keeping your back straight, and this kind of movement will really help you with your overhead presses and any overhead movements. I highly recommend using a resistance band with handles on it, but if you don't have one with handles, you'll still be able to make do. You just need to make sure it's a resistance that is very light. These are exercises you can do for your rotator cuff, which is a group of muscles that will stabilize your shoulder in its joint. So as mindful as you are about sitting with good posture, after a while of using your computer, your shoulders will roll forward and become internally rotated. That means it's really important to focus on external rotation when doing these rotator cuff exercises because the internal rotators are already overworked because we're typing on our computer, using our cell phone, reading a book. The primary muscles that do external rotation of the shoulder are the infraspinatus and the teres minor, and if you look closely, you can see the infraspinatus contracted. This looks really similar, but it's actually doing the internal rotation. I do these sometimes, but much less than the external rotation because my lifestyle already involves being internally rotated too much. This is another variation of the external rotation, but this time I have my elbow up, creating 90 degrees at the elbow and 90 degrees at the armpit. I always do this one before I train because it helps me engage the external rotator as well as the rear deltoid making it a great warm-up for any upper body workout. Once the external rotator is engaged, I like to keep my shoulder back and press upward, and this is really going to help me keep that shoulder back and help me with my overhead stability. Like I said before, you don't need to focus too much on the internal rotation movements. However, I do them sometimes to keep balance between my internal and external rotators. You want to keep balance between the two, but for the most part our lifestyles make it so that we do more internal rotation. Therefore, we should focus on the external rotation more, but we shouldn't neglect the internal rotation. If your shoulders feel really tight, it might help you to do some foam rolling or other myofascial release techniques before you do these. I always do this before I train. I roll out my rotator cuff before I do the mobility and stability. After performing all this mobility and rotator cuff stability exercises, I really like to do single armed overhead carries to help strengthen my shoulder in its proper position. So what I'll do is I'll take a kettlebell, I'll hold it overhead, and I'll walk in a straight line and just work on keeping my scapula in the position that it really needs to be in, which is the down position, keeping it scooped and flat on my back. I don't want to guarantee that any of these are going to reverse or cure one of your injuries, but I can tell you right now that if you implement some of these in your warm-up routine or your mobility routine, you will decrease your risk of injury. I highly recommend implementing it into your routine because it'll help you optimize your performance. If you're not running into little injuries and shoulder impingement as often, you'll be able to keep lifting, keep training heavy, and keep progressing. Thank you for watching. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Please subscribe, hit the like button, leave a comment, let me know some of your feedback. If you have something funny to say, I don't care, just, press those buttons all over the screen. It helps me out, helps my video do good, and it'll make me get little dopamines in my brain when I get notifications on my phone. So, yeah, if you enjoyed it, thank you. Take care.